two professional divers, were exploring an underwater cave. On their way back, they accidentally stirred up silt, causing the visibility inside the passage to suddenly drop. The two could only struggle upward while holding onto the guideline. But unexpectedly, the guideline suddenly snapped as well. The pair were instantly plunged into a dangerous situation. And this is the Sapiquita Cave diving incident that we're going to talk about today. The Sapiquita Cave is located on the island of Mallorca in eastern Spain. It is part of the Cova de Parada, Pont Piqueta cave system. The entire cave system has an explored length of approximately 3,091 meters, with a maximum depth of 33 meters. On the morning of April 15, 2017, two professional divers drove to the Sapiquita Cave. One of them, 54-year-old Cisco, was a geology professor with extensive cave diving experience. His partner, Guillem, was around the same age and equally experienced in cave exploration. Their objective on this expedition was to map an unexplored section inside the cave and collect underwater rock samples for research before returning along the same route. The entire mission was expected to take 3 hours. Before setting off, they carefully checked their diving equipment. About an hour after entering the water, the two successfully reached the unexplored area of the cave. Following their original plan, they split up. Guillem was responsible for exploring and measuring the size of the unknown chamber, while Cisco collected rock samples nearby. After exploring for an hour, the two reunited at the entrance of the mysterious chamber. Cisco glanced at his dive computer and realized they had already used 1/3 of their gas supply. He signaled to Guillem that it was time to head back. The two slowly swam toward the exit, one behind the other. The initial return passage was extremely narrow. Although Cisco and Guillem were exceptionally careful, they still accidentally stirred up the silt on the cave floor. As a result, visibility inside the cave suddenly dropped. Fortunately, both men were experienced cave divers. During the descent, they had already laid a guideline. As long as they followed the line by touch, they could still safely make their way out of the cave. But the return passage became narrower and narrower, making the silt inside the cave even denser. Visibility was now almost zero. After swimming for some time, the guideline in their hands suddenly snapped for unknown reasons. Cisco searched around the passage, trying to find the other end of the line, but failed. Just like that, the two men lost their only sense of direction. In the murky water, facing the crisis, Cisco and Guillem were nervous, but they did not panic. They had no idea how far away the broken section of guideline was, but fortunately they still had a reasonable amount of gas remaining. To avoid getting lost, the two unanimously decided to retreat back to the mysterious chamber first. They took out the cave map they had created during the earlier exploration. As a geology professor, Cisco pointed to an unexplored area on the map, not far from the mysterious chamber. He speculated that there might be an air pocket there. If they could find an air chamber, they could conserve the precious gas in their tanks and buy more time for a possible rescue or a long wait ahead. After communicating through their writing slates, the two made a bold decision to split up. Guillem would follow the location marked on the map to search for the possible air chamber, while Cisco would return to the broken guideline and try to locate the missing section. Both men understood that separating would double the danger, but staying together would only consume their limited gas more quickly and greatly reduce their chances of survival. Back at the broken line, Cisco crawled along the murky cave floor, searching non-stop, but after all his efforts, he found nothing. When Cisco checked his dive computer again, he was horrified to discover that he only had enough gas left for 1 more hour. Even if they found the guideline immediately, there was still nearly a kilometer of complex underwater passages between them and the cave entrance. There was absolutely no way that amount of gas could get them out alive. Cisco stopped the futile search and turned around, quickly swimming along the guideline laid by Guillem. At that moment, his only hope was that Guillem had successfully found the air chamber. Otherwise, both of them would die there. When Cisco finally broke the surface, a massive air chamber came into view. He saw Guillem's pale face, and the mixture of relief and despair was impossible to describe. Although the two men were still alive, the chances of rescue reaching them there were extremely slim. They had no choice but to try saving themselves. Cisco knew that farther away from their original diving route, there was another passage leading back to the cave entrance. The underwater visibility there likely had not been affected, and the passage also had a complete guideline installed. But the problem was this: the gas they had left combined was only enough for one person to barely make it out of the cave. After a long discussion, Cisco decided that Guillem would take the remaining gas and attempt to escape, while he himself stayed behind in the air chamber to await rescue. There were 3 reasons for this decision. First, after finding the chamber, Guillem had remained there resting, so his physical condition was relatively stable. Second, Guillem had a slimmer build meaning he would consume less gas while swimming out. Third, Sisko had previous cave survival experience. If anyone could endure longer while waiting for rescue, it would be him. Some decisions are so heavy that no words are needed. After briefly regaining his composure, Gillam carried both of their hopes for survival and disappeared beneath the water. Soon, the surface became still once again. This sealed air chamber was enormous. It was about 80 meters long, 20 meters wide, and 12 meters high. Although there was no food inside, there was fortunately no shortage of fresh water. Sisko sat alone on the rocks, waiting in darkness. As time passed, the concentration of carbon dioxide inside the chamber grew higher and higher. Sisko began to feel dizzy and develop headaches. These were obvious signs of hypercapnia. Under the double torment of oxygen deprivation and carbon dioxide poisoning, his mind slowly began to shut down. Sometimes he thought he saw lights flickering in the water, but when he moved closer, there was nothing there except endless darkness. Soon after, Sisko heard the sound of drilling above his head. Hope reignited inside him once more, but after continuing for some time, the drilling suddenly stopped, and it never resumed again. As hope shattered again and again, Sisko's spirit completely collapsed into despair. He became convinced that Gillam had died on the way out, and that no one was coming to save him. In the darkness, Sisko reached for his diving knife and gripped it tightly in his hand. No one knows what he was thinking at that moment. In fact, it only took Gillam 1 hour to successfully return to the cave entrance. The moment he reached the surface, he immediately called for rescue. An hour later, the island's top rescue team arrived at the scene. Leading the team was Burnett, a close friend of Sisko. Gillam carefully marked Sisko's trapped location on the map in detail, because the guideline along their original route had already snapped, and visibility inside the passage was extremely poor. The rescue team had no choice but to use an alternate route for the rescue attempt. But unexpectedly, the silt stirred up by Gillam during his escape had still not settled. After advancing only 300 meters into the backup passage, the rescue team was forced to retreat due to near-zero visibility. Now they could only wait for the silt inside the cave to settle, which could take hours or even days. During this time, the rescue team also brought in a drilling machine. They hoped to drill through the rock from the surface to provide Sisko with oxygen and food. But unexpectedly, the rock layers there were incredibly thick and hard. In the end, the operation failed. In the blink of an eye, it was now the third day. Visibility inside the cave had improved slightly. To prevent getting lost during the rescue, the first group of divers entered the water and cut away all unnecessary guidelines. After that, Sisko's friend Burnett descended into the cave. Following the remaining guideline, he successfully reached the mysterious chamber. There, he discovered the guideline previously laid by Gillam. Following that line, Burnett finally arrived at the air chamber. He loudly called out Sisko's name. Suddenly, a figure sitting on the rocks slowly stood up. It was Sisko, who had been trapped for more than 50 hours. Sisko wasn't sure whether what he was seeing was real or just another hallucination. He used all his strength to embrace Burnett. The feeling of real human contact finally convinced him this was not an illusion. The first thing Sisko asked was whether Gillam was still alive. After receiving Burnett's confirmation, Sisko felt an overwhelming sense of relief. Because Sisko was now in extremely weak condition, Burnett could only return alone to discuss the next stage of the rescue operation with the team on the surface. For hours later, the second rescue team successfully reached the air chamber. With professional rescue equipment, Sisko's condition gradually improved. At around 11 p.m. on April 17, 2017, after being trapped for 60 hours, Sisko finally swam out of the cave. Under the escort of the rescue team, he was immediately taken to the hospital afterward. After several days of treatment, Sisko made a full recovery and was discharged.